Straight out of NXT, it is the next great black wrestler. Polls are open, so vote now for your choice of the name of this great black hope. Options include Barack Cosby, LeBron Cheeto, Seal, Denzel L. Jackson, Jackie Robinson L. Jackson, and Kunta Luther King Jr. Let's just go with Apollo Crews. Listen to PodNasty on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, and SoundCloud at soundcloud.com/AKONUWA. It is Alfred, Big Nasty Kunawa. Dateline! Saturday, August 8th, 2015. It is Ceasefire Day. Put the guns down. Put the guns down. Put them down. It's Farmers' Day. It's Father's Day in Taiwan. It's Flag Day. And of course, it's Signal Troops Day. Who said there are no holidays in August? Always, always, always remember to subscribe to the PodNasty Wrestling Podcast on iTunes and YouTube, and listen on SoundCloud and Stitcher. Oh yes, brother. Visit the PodNasty YouTube channel especially because I unleashed two what I thought were great videos after the fallout from the Hulk Hogan controversy that's gotten a lot of great feedback, a lot of great attention. People have their opinions. They're the idiots on Reddit who you would be surprised. You probably wouldn't be surprised at the racism on Reddit in the wake of this controversy. But then you get informed opinions. I've got a lot of people on Twitter who follow me, a lot of people who I've engaged with. I've made a lot of radio appearances to talk about this controversy, and it's gone well. And I think I've helped open people's eyes to the fact that the problem may not just be with Hulk Hogan. The problem is a cultural problem in WWE that goes beyond on-camera stuff. So it's been a good about a week and a half of coverage for this Hulk Hogan thing, but now I think people are ready to move on, which is unfortunate because this mistake is just going to keep repeating itself. It's not Hulk Hogan, it's going to be another old wrestler, it's going to be another a person on WWE staff, and we're going to get outraged, and then we're going to move on, because that's just how the news cycle goes. It's going to break my heart that we're going to move on from Roddy Piper's death. I think this should be something that should be covered ad nauseum till the end of time, really. Roddy Piper was that good. He unfortunately passed away at the age of 61. One of the greatest talents wrestling has ever seen. And I'm talking talent, just unbridled talent that was unleashed. He was a modern day wrestler during the 80s cartoon era, and he was still a big star. Roddy Piper's a guy he was before his time. Okay? He was before his time, and he was still a big star. Talking big three in the 80s during a golden age. Roddy Piper is one of the few wrestlers, and Hulk Hogan is not on this list of guys who, if he was active today, if he was in his prime today, if he was on Raw this past Monday, big star, he would get over just like he did in the 80s. It was a timeless act that he had, which wasn't even really an act, which is why he connected. So it was really sad to hear of his passing. So really a tough year. 2015, I mean, if we look back when we're doing a year in review, we'll see that for 80s era wrestling, for the territory era of wrestling, it was a really tough year. We lost Dusty Rhodes, lost Roddy Piper within a month of each other, and then we had the whole Hulk Hogan controversy. It's been a really tough year for old school wrestling. Really has. WWE is always moving on. WWE is always surging forward, and new school wrestling is a thing now. NXT is new school wrestling, and they've signed Uhaa Nation, who represents the contemporary style of high-flying, high-octane wrestling. Very electrifying young man. Somebody who a lot of people have high hopes for. WWE just decided on a name for Uhaa Nation. You want to talk about their race relations being bad? I didn't think they could get worse, and boy was I wrong. WWE's new black wrestler, Uhaa Nation. His new name is Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews. Which sounds a lot like Apollo Creed, but really it's just like a mashup of two black celebrities. Apollo Creed, the fictional athlete from Rocky, and Terry Crews, who we see on the Old Spice commercials. So there you have it. Apollo Crews. Maybe they're going for Showtime at the Apollo. This name just shows how out of touch WWE is with current black culture. To WWE, black culture is like a jive television show that was canceled in the 70s. And that's why it's not cool. That's why wrestling isn't cool. It doesn't know how to embrace black culture. Apollo Crews? Come on! WWE will never be mainstream, will never be accepted by the young people. It'll always be a bastard stepchild of entertainment until they learn to correctly appropriate black culture. Okay, that's not the reason that wrestling isn't cool, but it's a big reason. Go back to the Attitude Era. Look at the top acts. New Age Outlaws, NWO, even DX. What were they doing? They were subtly appropriating black culture. Go watch the Monday Night Wars doc. I know there's a lot of racist people on Reddit right now saying, oh, that's not true. It's the white man who did. No, listen to me. They were appropriating black culture. Kevin Nash, Sean Waldman, they were all saying Tupac was huge during that era. So what did they do? They would wear their bandanas just like Tupac did. They would talk in slang. They were doing a lot of things that would connect with black viewers, and that made wrestling cooler. Because it's no secret, black people and black culture decides what's cool in this country. Black culture decides what's cool, what kind of slang people are using, what kind of clothes people are wearing, and those who learn to appropriate black culture and make it marketable benefit. What was the biggest show on television this year? Empire. And I'm talking record ratings. 5-6 weeks in a row, the ratings increased. Tens of millions of people tuning in. And it's not a black show. The stars are black. The stars are black people in power, something WWE can learn from. But everybody watches it. It's not just a black show. White people watch it. Asian people watch it. Black people watch it. Everybody watches Empire. Because it's just cool. WWE doesn't seem cool. WWE is a lot like baseball. You know? There's that great piece on Real Sports where Chris Rock was talking about how baseball just fell out of favor with the black community. You don't see as many black baseball stars. There are no black baseball players on the World Series champions. It's just not something that black people find cool anymore. Therefore, it's one of the big reasons baseball is struggling. Why baseball seems old time, like the Old Boys Network, and it's not cool. And it's not this, oh, it's too expensive. No, that's not a legit excuse, because there are a lot of players from areas of poverty in third world countries who are able to just play baseball and get better at it and eventually become big stars. Baseball just isn't cool to the black community, so now it's just not cool to everybody else. And that's a big problem with WWE. WWE doesn't seem cool to the black community. If I was to drag one of my black friends to watch Raw, which I have, time after time, I'd sit my black friend down to watch Raw, and they'll see something like R-Truth and The New Day, and the way Vince McMahon seems to see black people from his standpoint, clapping and smiling and shucking and jiving and rapping and dancing. And my black friends will say, what kind of racist stuff am I watching? And I'll have to sit them down and say, well, it's not really that racist, but it's so hard to defend because WWE has no idea how to correctly appropriate black culture. Why would they? They don't have any black board members. They don't have any black corporate executives. They rarely have any black writers. I was told there was one guy in NXT who's a black guy who writes for them. But WWE is such a white voice that they don't know how to appropriate black culture without offending somebody. You know? I was listening to the New Day on Jericho's podcast, and you could just tell how out of touch the front office was with black culture. There were lines in there that I was just slapping my head like, oh my God. They wanted to give them old-timey gospel music. They wanted them to be legit preachers. Come on. WWE isn't cool. And one of the reasons is because it does not seem to be too concerned about caring about black culture, about correctly doing it justice, taking what's cool in black culture and capitalizing on it. Let me tell you, there's a guy named Fetty Wap right now. He does what's called trap music. Once upon a time, trap music was underground. It was guttural. It was as underground as it gets because trap music is about selling drugs. It's a lot of really shady stuff. But he's got 2 of the top 10 songs on the Billboard right now. The trap culture. That's how powerful black culture is we're able to dig deep into the trap and make that mainstream. You don't want to look into that, Vince? WWE? Nobody wants to look into... I mean, I'm not saying they should have the first trap WWE champion. No. But I'm just saying there's a lot to explore with this whole black culture thing. Trust me, it's fun. It really is. And if you don't believe me that WWE is falling behind the times because they just don't know the black community, what's the number one show? What show on Monday nights, week after week after week after week, beats the hell out of Monday Night Raw? Love and Hip Hop. I mean, it's not really an exemplary show, and it's not my favorite portrayal of the black community, but Love and Hip Hop, week after week, beats Raw in the ratings. That should tell you something, right? And then in September, along comes the NFL. I mean, there's a couple of black guys who play for the NFL, last I checked. So WWE really needs to get on board. I mean, honestly, it doesn't have to be charity work to give a black guy a WWE championship, or to at least employ more African Americans in power. Black Americans, I'm sorry, I hate the term African American. Even though I am an African American, which if you're using it literally like that, I love the term. I'm an African American, my parents are from Africa, but they need to employ more black Americans in power. Get that black voice. Now, it's not going to happen overnight. I'm not saying they should hire away the cast of Empire, but if there was more diversity, if they had more perspectives, maybe, just maybe a proud black man or woman would say, you know, that R-Truth thing really needs to go. I don't know if people really need to see that as your representation of the black person in wrestling. Just saying. And it all started with Apollo Crews. Goodness gracious. It's like that bit at the top of the show. It's like, I could only imagine what those rejected names look like. Jesus. Meanwhile, we still don't even know what the SummerSlam card is going to look like. As of right now, there is one match announced. Brock Lesnar versus Undertaker. It is your main event, and nothing else has been announced for a 4-hour show that's 2 weeks away. I mean, there are things in place, but nothing else has been announced for a 4-hour show that is 2 weeks away. And this is kind of an injustice to Seth Rollins and the WWE World Heavyweight Championship, isn't it? Hasn't that title and Rollins been drugged through the mud throughout this entire build-up? Think about it. Every division has an actual division of competitors. The Divas division has at least 6 women competing for that title. The tag team divisions, we just saw a fatal 4-way for the tag team number 1 contendership. Not officially, but it put New Day in position to be number 1 contenders. The Intercontinental title division, Miz keeps saying that he wants that title because Ryback is hurt. Big Show is in the mix. The U.S. title division, we're having that feud between Cesaro and Kevin Owens, which is a spin-off of the U.S. title chase. And the only title that doesn't have a clear-cut division is WWE's most important title? How does that happen? How does it happen to where Brock Lesnar is closing in on your biggest title only to be thwarted by The Undertaker and doesn't even want to talk about the WWE title one night later? He would rather go after an old man in The Undertaker in what is going to be your SummerSlam main event. The WWE title will not main event SummerSlam. They made that clear off the bat. So you've got your most important title with no contenders. It's not going to main event one of your biggest pay-per-views of the year. In fact, your second biggest pay-per-view. And with John Cena gone, Seth Rollins has to do all the heavy lifting himself and has to basically beg somebody in an open challenge to come challenge him for the WWE title. What? Everybody should want that title. That title should have all of those competitors. That is your primary championship, and nobody but Seth Rollins wants it? Does anybody want that title? They're doing a lot of damage to it by having nobody step up to the plate. It's like Seth Rollins is out there for like half an hour. If this was real life, and Seth Rollins had the most important title or the most important trophy or championship or distinction in the entire company, and the guy who you would think is the number 1 contender in John Cena is hurt and he's out with injury and he's gone, I mean, the Sharks would just line up, wouldn't they? There should have been a cavalcade of people like, hey, now that John Cena isn't here right now, why don't you give me a shot at the title? What about me? What about me? But instead, it's a Seth Rollins show, and nobody comes to even step up for that title until he calls him out in a challenge. In an open challenge. I thought it was ridiculous. That championship needs contenders. That's what makes it a title. That's what people always forget. They always overlooked. People always overlook the art and the value of the contenders. Forget about how often it's defended. Forget about how the finishes go. Who wants that thing? That's what I want to know. In UFC, if there's a division and somebody's a champion, but all the contenders are just weak, all of a sudden that title doesn't look so good now, does it? It's what I think is going to impact Ronda Rousey's legacy, especially if she never faces Cyborg, which I think she eventually will. But I mean, who did she fight? What are these women who she fights, what are they going to go on to do? Are they all just going to be known as that one girl who got knocked out by Ronda Rousey? Because if that's the case, long term, Ronda Rousey's legacy is going to struggle. We're gonna appreciate how big of a star she was, and if she does movies, and we're gonna really appreciate the star power and the attraction and the draw of Ronda Rousey. But if all these women just get knocked out and go away, well then what did it really mean? What did that title really mean? That's what people look at when they look at a great champion and a great legacy and a great division. It's all about who wants it. It's all about who did you fight, who's lined up to compete. And in Seth Rollins' case, that's nobody right now. And that hurts him, and it hurts the title, and it hurts the WWE. Because it makes all their wrestlers look undetermined and lazy. It's like, here is this golden opportunity with this empty division for your biggest title, and nobody wants it? Reigns, you would rather chase around Bray Wyatt? Ambrose, you would rather just be there? Come on. Somebody ask for a shot. Anybody. I'd settle for Fandango at this point. Not looking good for that WWE title. It's not looking good because the fact that John Cena is even challenging for it really tells you that WWE is grasping at straws at this point. John Cena is not a main eventer anymore. He's an upper mid-carder who's a big star who's helping younger, newer talents as a gatekeeper. That's what he's doing. That's what he's doing. So for him to all of a sudden once again come up to the WWE title picture, it's like that glass case. I mean, we are in a time frame now that when John Cena is competing for a WWE championship, glass case, we don't have anything else. Either somebody got hurt or we're running thin on the division. We got to get John Cena. Ratings are down. We got to get Cena to do it. It's a glass case. WWE taking another step back, and it concerns me. And it should concern you too. Always remember to subscribe to PodNasty on iTunes and YouTube, and listen on SoundCloud and Stitcher. Looking very much forward to SummerSlam. I will have some big interviews for you in the week leading up to SummerSlam. We're going to have a lot of fun on the PodNasty Wrestling Podcast when they actually do come up with a card. We're going to break that down. But for now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go play Straight Out of Compton on my bagpipes. If you're going to be a bigot, why not do so in a company with no black board members, no black corporate executives, never had a black WWE champion, no black writers, and even outside of the WWE, no black journalists or columnists who regularly cover professional wrestling with the exception of me? Like, if I quit and left for the Nation of Islam tomorrow, pro wrestling would look a lot like Duck Dynasty.